Hello and welcome to Ethical Corporation's webinar on growing a circular economy. Over the next 45 minutes, we will be discussing the extent to which three leading brands, Dell, Horsehead Corporation and Aquafil, are moving towards the circular economy to achieve business growth, the benefits of their approach, and what this means for their brand value. My name is Karina Amin, and I'm Head of Strategy here at Ethical Corporation, and I'll be moderating the discussion today. With us today, we have Tim R. Basilone, Vice President of Environmental Affairs at Horsehead Corporation, Scott O'Connell, Director of Environmental Affairs at Dell, and Giulio Bonazzi, Chairman and CEO at Aquafil. Thank you all for joining. Now, to give you an understanding of today's structure, there are no slides, it's pure discussion. The webinar will be a focused discussion with the speakers, trying to bring out as much of their expertise and their knowledge from their backgrounds and the work that they've done. We'll have 3 polling questions in the webinar, which we will put to you, the audience, and our speakers will then bring in their perspectives and responses to the questions. The latter half will involve a Q&A with the audience, where you, the audience, can pitch your questions directly to the speakers. Now, before we begin, I'd like to emphasize that this is an interactive discussion. On the right-hand side, you will see a box where you can post your questions. You can also post questions on Twitter via the hashtag RBSNY, so please do get involved. We'll first start off the webinar today with a poll question to the listeners. Now, given the benefits of creating a circular economy, namely the environmental benefits and developing a long-term sustainable business, this first poll question is centered around if, in fact, companies are making that next leap in creating a circular economy. The first poll question to the listeners is, do you currently have a circular economy strategy? A, yes, or B, no. The poll will close in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's have a look at the results for today. Okay, well, interesting. So 70% of our audience today do not currently have a circular economy strategy. Let's bring in our speakers to today's discussion and really kind of ask their opinion on this. Tim, what do you think about this this poll question and what the audience's reaction is to this?
Well, I think that you know, and from my perspective, our business relies on a circular economy for survival. In terms of looking at a hazardous waste and converting that to usable products at the end. It's interesting to see that only 30% are relying on a circular economy. I would hope that with time that reverses and in short time.
Excellent. And for you, you've already mentioned that your business focuses on the circular economy. I mean, what does a successful circular economy strategy mean to you? What do you really want to be achieving with this?
Well, taking what are considered wastes and hazardous wastes and converting those to usable goods for industry, and that's our whole business model essentially, is defined on the taking of zinc metal wastes and nickel metal wastes from various industries and efficiently converting those to stock metals and zinc oxides and other industrial products, if you will, for product manufacturing.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Tim. Scott, let's bring you into the conversation there. I mean, are you sort of surprised by the results from our poll question today?
No, actually, I'm not. I think we've done some similar surveying and polling internally within Dell and find fairly consistent response as far as awareness, and I think the webinars like the one today are a great opportunity to increase the awareness of what the circular economy is and how companies are applying circular economy to their business and their operations. So I think that this is, not a surprising poll result, but hopefully, as Tim mentioned, hopefully over time with increased awareness and as companies realize the opportunities around circular economy, you'd see the results switch in favor of more companies having a strategy around the circular economy.
Mm-hmm. And for you, Scott, and for the business at Dell, I mean, what does the circular economy actually mean for business?
It's a great question. So for us, it really means looking across the product life cycle and driving out waste at every step of the way. And we think of it in three phases, if you will. One of those is design. So as one of the world's largest IT providers, we look at the design of the products and the solutions that we offer our customers and think about the ways that we can make the products easy to use, as well as when the products become aged, making them easy to be both repaired, reused, and recycled. And a lot of that happens at the design phase across the product portfolio, and that really extending, wherever we can, extending product life cycles is a key component of that. The second part of it is ultimately these products, electronic products, do reach a end of life, and so we have robust recycling programs around the world. We have consumer take-back and recycling programs in over 83 countries and territories around the world, making it convenient and accessible for our customers to return used electronics. And then the third part of it is what we call closing the loop. And that's where we're taking materials from the recovered and recycled electronics and actually putting them back in to the supply chain. And 2 years ago, we launched, we're the first in our industry to launch a closed loop recycled plastic supply chain that was certified through a third party called UL Environment. And since launching that program just 2 short years ago, we've now shipped over 10 million pounds of closed loop plastic parts back into new Dell electronics around the world. So those three aspects of it have been very core to us thinking about and applying the circular economy to our business.
Excellent. And just on that note, Scott, in terms of that program that you mentioned, I mean, what did that internal sell look like to really sort of shift perceptions towards the circular economy?
So that's probably one of the harder things to do in this, I think, is we found that this is much more than just recycling or just looking at one part of that supply chain or that life cycle. Is we had to bring together all of the stakeholders that have a piece of that product life cycle to the table to understand and map out the entire value chain across the life cycle. So it included folks from design engineering, supply chain specialists, our services teams that manage the service offerings for the repair and reuse of electronics, as well as including some of the folks from finance that manage the budgets of all of those different stakeholder groups to be able to understand the economics of applying the circular economy across the business unit. So I think it really requires, one, getting all of the right stakeholders to the table, as well as a lot of collaboration amongst those groups to make this work.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Scott. Giulio, let's bring you into the conversation and tell us, being sort of the CEO and the chairman of Aquafil, tell us a little bit more about what the circular economy really means for your business.
Yes, thank you. Well, Aquafil is producing man-made fibers, mainly polyamide and polyamide 6. And we sell our fibers, so we are an ingredient company. So we don't produce a final product, but an ingredient. And the main business to which it is finishing our fiber is carpet. And the second one is textile, so fabrics mainly for swimwear, and carpet for flooring business, commercial, residential, or automotive. And luckily, we are in nylon 6, and nylon 6 or polyamide 6 is a very special polymer matrix because can be depolymerized. So when we recycle, or we prefer to say we regenerate our material, we don't remelt it, because any remelting has a couple of problems. That you always, little or much, you downgrade your material which is remolten. Secondly, all the pollutants which are inside, they remain inside. We differently, because this is possible to our material, we return to the previous stage of the molecule. So we are able to reproduce forever a material which is exactly the same or even better than the waste that has originated the new product. So for us, really has been a kind of revolution when we started this adventure. We were maybe underestimating a lot of problems, but luckily we were able to find, first of all, customers who embraced our idea and our innovation. And second of all, we are, for the time being, able enough to find enough waste, containing nylon 6, from which to obtain our regenerated material. So far, and please consider that we are in our business a large player, because we are the second producer of fiber for carpet in the world and the first one in Europe. But today we started this new production in 2011. More than 33% of our entire production is coming from regeneration of polyamide 6. So every year we avoid landfilling or incinerating something like between 50 to 60 million pounds of polyamide 6. And we produce products that are exactly the same of the one that are coming from crude oil or its derivatives. So it means a lot for us, because we think that the future, if you're not sustainable, you will not survive. And luckily, we are in an industry where it is possible really to redesign the way of doing business and to close the loop in a perfect circular economical system.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Giulio. All three of you sort of mentioned, some of the key benefits for your business around the circular economy. And I guess one question that we have is really around, can the circular economy ever be bad for business profits?
Well, our experience is totally the opposite. I'm sorry if I interrupted you, because since we started this new adventure, we have been growing our business in terms of size and in terms of profit. So in our opinion, to be sustainable means to be more profitable, not less profitable. But of course, I don't know if this is applicable to every industry and to every product. In our case, this is the reality, and we think that we have a great opportunity really to arrive to 100% of regeneration and to grow our business in a very large way.
Tim, what do you think? Can the circular economy be bad for business profits?
Well, I think at the end point, no. But at the onset of looking at any circular economy or any type of business model where you're going to incorporate materials that are not your typical materials, and Scott referred to this, and Giulio as well, is that you need to get all the stakeholders involved. And initially, getting a good business model put together and an accurate cost analysis is the key in mapping things out. I think a lot of times inaccuracies on those fronts could stunt or prohibit further development of ideas to where a circular economy could exist and then thrive from there. But a lot of times you have to dive in and you have to look at things and figure it out as you go. But initially, obviously it has to make good business sense, and the economics need to work to at least get started. So being accurate and being comprehensive with the team, as Scott mentioned, is having the stakeholders, all departments, inside, outside the company involved. It may take some time to develop something that's accurate and gives a pretty good impression in terms of value. So.
Excellent. We've actually just had a question come in from one of the audience members that I'd like to pose to you. Scott, if you'd be interested in answering this one. This is similar around sort of the business profits angle. The question is, do profits from a circular economy come from customer loyalty or CSR reasons, or because it's directly affecting the bottom line?
That's a great question. I think it's actually both. We find that our customers frequently tell us that they want products that are not only better for the environment, but they also, they don't necessarily want to pay more for that, and they don't want any impact on the performance of the product. So we do see a strong demand from our customers around more sustainable products and services, and then addressing that demand, being a very customer-driven company that we are, is looking for the opportunities within our operations to deliver on that. And as I mentioned earlier, the closed-loop recycled plastics program is one way that we've enabled that. And kind of building a little bit on what Tim was just saying, is we found when we started looking at that more closely that as we were recovering electronics through our take-back programs around the world, we were actually in many places paying partners within the reverse logistics supply chain to actually downcycle the plastics. And so we said, well, why don't we reverse that? Instead of paying for someone else to downcycle it, why don't we bring it back into our supply chain and put it back into our products? And so that was certainly, we found that the economics of that actually, we were able to save on bringing those plastics back into the supply chain, and it took work across different parts of Dell, but also some key supply chain partners to be able to enable that. And so once we brought the stakeholders and understand the true costs of take back and recycling and the costs of the materials that were coming back compared to what we're using in the supply chain, it made great sense to bring those materials back into our products.
Yep. Hey, just to add, Karina, I think what Scott said is absolutely right on point, and that is, you're not looking for the big victory. I think it's a myriad of many small victories that is a collage then, and kind of builds to something that is more of a robust business model. But your idea about plastics there, Scott, is a good one, in the sense that the recycling, and when you looked at it, it was a small piece, but it ended up working out when you really digested it. But it now becomes a small piece of a greater entity, if you will, of a circular economy, and that small victory leads to other ideas and other victories, because it's a perspective, it's a way of looking at things that people aren't used to dealing with. So That's really good.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think this leads on, this conversation around sort of the commercial angle for this, leads us quite nicely into our next poll question, which is really around how high does a circular economy sit on your business priorities? So this question is to our audience members today. It's how high does a circular economy sit on your business priority today? You have a couple of different options. It's either the top of your agenda, you're spending more time on this, it's the same as before, or it's not on your agenda. The poll will close in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's have a look at the answers. Okay, interesting. So it's sort of quite mixed, but most of our audience members believe that they are actually spending more time on the circular economy, and it does sit higher on your business priority. Giulio, do you want to comment on our poll answers for today?
Well, yes, thank you. First of all, I want to say that I was, I don't want to say shocked by the result of the previous poll, because I think that 30% is a high number. Today the economy is quite big, and 30% of people saying that Yes, I think it's a high number with today's reality. But well, on the other side, I am surprised about the 20% saying that this is not on our agenda, because I believe that it is better if you put in your agenda, because if you don't transform your company, shortly you risk to be kicked out from the market. You know, so. For us, this is a matter of survival. You know, we depend on oil. We are a highly energy-intensive company, so really to change our company in a sustainable way is of a high importance, and I believe that this should be important for every type of business. So that's it. You know, top of our agenda, 19%. Is a good number, but I think that should be much higher than that.
Excellent. Okay, and I guess to both kind of Tim and Scott here, I mean, in terms of sort of your business models, to what extent have you really sort of changed your business model so that the circular economy actually reaches into your operations and it's not just recycling? Scott, you mentioned that it's more than recycling earlier, so do you want to chime in on that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned earlier, design is a key part of this for us. And when we think about design of our products, it really begins at the beginning of, it's the very beginning of the product life cycle. And we find that, you know, if you can think about the whole life cycle and incorporate ideas around extending the life of the product during the design phase, you can actually have a pretty significant impact on the life cycle of that product as it's out into the field and when it starts to come back through the recycle stream. And so, and we do that in a couple of areas. One is looking to use recyclable materials. So it's not just about recycling from an end-of-life perspective, but actually using and designing in materials that can be easily recycled from an end-of-life perspective, both for our products, but also packaging materials is a big focus for us in looking at things like you know, bamboo and mushroom-based packaging and designing it and using those materials up front, but also looking at the products and minimizing, I mentioned plastics earlier, is looking at kind of standardizing and minimizing on the different variety of plastics that are used in electronics to use those that have the highest recycling potential. And then the other piece of that would be looking at what we call design for repair and recycling, and looking at ways that we can actually mechanically design products. And a simple idea here that we found that was, as Tim mentioned, some of these simple ideas turn into being some of the things that really have the highest impact, is just minimizing, you know, the number of screws in a laptop computer, for example, to make it easier and more accessible for both our repair technicians in the field, but also our recyclers to be able to more easily and efficiently disassemble and either repair the product or ultimately at end of life disassemble it into the different components for more efficient recycling. So it's for us a combination of, you know, the materials, but also the overall design of the products themselves that you know, that lends to enabling a more circular design across the life cycle.
And Scott, just on that note, I mean, you've mentioned some of the really sort of interesting levels of innovation that you've been sort of looking at. I mean, in terms of sort of our audience members here, and a lot of them will be coming from the CSR and sustainability space, where should heads of CSR or sustainability look to find that level of innovation to recycle, to reuse, or remanufacture materials?
That's a great question. I think part of that goes back to what we were talking about earlier and getting the different parts of the business. I think the first step is looking at, you know, the life cycle of a given product or even a service, from design all the way through end of life in the case of products, and understanding which stakeholders are involved in that life cycle. And design engineering is one, supply chain, services. There's a lot of different parts. We found that there were a lot of siloed discussions happening within those different departments around things around recycling, recyclability, but until we brought them all together to really look at the big picture, the full picture, that with the CSR and sustainability folks at the table as well, we really found that there were some near-term opportunities, and I've talked a little bit about those, but also those near-term opportunities have become working models for other advances that we've made, and we think there'll be more of those in the future as well.
Excellent, thanks for that. Tim, let's bring you back into the conversation here. And in terms of just our poll that we just had, I mean, 47% believe that this is now starting to climb up on their agenda and sit higher on their business priority. I mean, what do you think about that?
I think that's the 47% that are trying to. I think that's the number you just laid out there. I don't have the poll in front of me right now, but the 47% that it's climbing on their agenda, that's good. Now there are early frustrations, and those early frustrations, you got to overlook those for things that you're looking for, that first victory of showing the way and carving the path of success. But the stakeholders, I think, is where the gold lies in terms of good ideas, looking at things differently, and growing that circular economy. For us, we're in that circular economy. We're a piece of it, a big piece of it for zinc production and putting zinc back into the marketplace. But we still strive to look at the end-of-life sources and resources for additional zinc to be recycled. Our issue internally is more driven by technology and trying to, even become more cost-effective at the conversion of zinc resources to get them back to the marketplace. So, we continue to strive to look at things cost-effectively to drive the costs down and the values up of, our circular economy of zinc and nickel recycling. And so I think the 47%, provided they are serious and have goals baked in and key performance indicators identified that will allow them to hit milestones along the way, you need to lay those challenges out there so that people really think, and it's not just an exercise and, and the meeting's over, but they keep thinking about the way to overcome some of the initial challenges. So I think that's key.
Excellent. I mean, you sort of briefly, Tim, you mentioned working with stakeholders there. I mean, within the sort of the zinc production area, are you actually collaborating with other companies in that space on developing a more holistic circular economy strategy?
Yes, we work with our customers in terms of looking at materials that they're supplying us, and our raw materials are hazardous wastes, listed hazardous wastes in the United States. So we incent them to use us as opposed to landfilling, and there's some benefits there economically for them. We do some polling with some companies where, we take their wastes and then give back the distilled raw materials that they use for either stainless steel production or galvanizing per se. So there are arrangements that are made it's a win-win to define the win-win in the business and the circular economy. Now the other things are transportation and other areas where you look at it and you say, well, it's not just about the end of the cycle when we recycle those things, but it's the whole buildup of looking at ways to get some of the cost reduced to make other areas that are more cost intensive more doable. So that's why I say is you have to look at each individual piece, but in the collective, you may be more economically viable if you have some major victories. In one sense, it lowers the overall cost perspective in another sense. I don't know if I'm being very articulate there, but just trying to look at it, and it's a constant balancing with, some of the regulatory requirements from an environmental standpoint. And we're constantly dealing with challenges on a cost front, but always looking at it from a perspective of, moving forward and overcoming some of those things.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Giulio, let's bring you back into the conversation there and focusing on this idea of collaboration. We've actually just had another question come in from our audience today, which is around how does the concepts of the circular economy influence how you collaborate with traditional competitors? And how do you think about drawing the line between collaboration and competition?
Well, actually, we don't collaborate with our competitors. It's already tough sometimes to collaborate with our customers and with our suppliers, Our suppliers, because of course they don't like the idea that instead of buying from them, we produce our raw material from recycling or regeneration. And from our customers, because some of them are scared by the fact that we are the only one in the industry today which is able to or has an access to this technology which we invented, So it's only Aquafil that has this technology. So you can imagine how easy it is to collaborate with our competitors, So we do not, honestly, we do not collaborate because, they don't like the fact that they are not able to follow us, to copy, or to bring products that are equally performing or environmentally as performant as ours. Just to give you an idea, the carbon footprint of our regenerated product is 80% less than the one coming from oil, and we are going to further improve it during 2017 and 2018. So, if tomorrow morning someone would be asking, well, can you give me a better product or with a better carbon footprint, for sure Aquafil sells, the other do not, So it's not that easy. So there is a constant fight with competitors. Unfortunately, because the ideal situation for me is the one where everybody is going in the same direction and the best one is going to win.
Absolutely, excellent. Well, I think that brings us, Giulio, really nicely talking about sort of that technology aspect. It brings us really nicely into our next poll question to our listeners, which is around, are you currently using technology to find circular economy solutions? So this is the last poll question to our listeners today. And there are three options. It's either a yes or no or a not yet. So please start voting, and the poll will close in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's have a look at the results for today. Are you currently using technology to find circular economy solutions? 41% believe not yet. I mean, Giulio, just as you mentioned before around the fact that you've created your own technology for this, are you quite surprised by the results today?
Well, not really, because I believe that it is connected with the first poll where, more or less 30% were implementing circular economical strategies, and so I find it pretty correlated. Of course, it's not easy. Sometimes it's easy to speak, but not so easy to act, because also in our case, it took years to develop this technology, and at the startup, well, you can imagine that. It is not like your car in the morning, that you turn the engine on and you go at the maximum speed. It's a learning curve, very often extremely difficult, with several problems to be resolved. First problem is reverse logistics. To bring back products is not an easy problem to solve. Second problem is that we are recycling products that are not engineered to be recycled. So I'm so happy to hear that there are companies like Dell that are considering to build products, thinking in the future that those products are going to be recycled. In my industry, this, is really not yet started. It's not so easy to bring new products in the market that are equally performing, same or less expensive, and as beautiful as the present ones. It is not easy, to introduce this kind of technologies on consolidated markets that are maybe 30, 40, 50 years old, and where everything has been optimized and brought to its lowest theoretical cost. So it's a big job, it's a big adventure, but I'm sure that if you are taking the challenge, you will be surprised on how rewarding it is.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Giulio. Tim, let's bring you back into the conversation, because you mentioned earlier some of the issues around technology is to really sort of look at driving costs down and bringing up the value. So for you, what technology opportunities have you seen or have you found to really sort of help turn environmental waste into a new source of revenue? Where have you looked for this?
Well, one thing that Horsehead has just completed, and we are in the process of bringing it up to online, is that we shut down a zinc smelter, a historic zinc smelter that relied on electrothermal technology, and we built a brand new facility that is a hydrometallurgical facility. So we shrunk our carbon footprint significantly in that move, as well as in emissions, where we, the smelter naturally had emissions of particulates and lead and other materials, so we eliminated that. So, from a standpoint of moving into a new technology as a major step for all of our zinc production, it was a huge undertaking. And so, the whole company was transformed into a new means of producing metal from recycled material. So, we continue to look at our recycling operations for new technology, existing technology that, with gas prices being down, there may be other opportunities in terms of being able to recover metals using technology that wasn't cost effective when gas prices were higher. So right now we rely on rotary hearth furnaces and a circular, as well as wells, kilns for recovery of zinc, and the rotary hearth furnace is for recovery of nickel. But nevertheless, as economics change in the gas markets and what have you, there may be other technologies that come into line, so to speak, that are cost effective. So we're constantly studying our operation from a standpoint of efficiency. And I don't think that'll ever end, to tell you the truth, Karina.
Excellent. Thanks. Scott, let's bring you back into the conversation there. Do you agree with some of those thoughts from Tim and Giulio, or what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I do, and just I guess as a company in the technology solutions sector, I think the poll results are very interesting. Certainly indicates we have some work to do here together, but we certainly view technology being really a key enabler to the circular economy, and at a high level, thinking about the Internet of Things and ways to bring together data from measuring and sensors, looking at our natural resources like water and energy. There's a lot of opportunity to apply technology to better understanding the environment and understanding the impacts of operations. I think in addition to that, it's kind of interesting, the poll question here. I wonder when we have polls like this, if folks are thinking about the word technology. I think for us, technology could be a lot of different things. It could be, and Tim mentioned, I think this early on in the webinar is just, better information and better data on the way products are made and the material flows of products and materials through a life cycle and ultimately back into recycling streams. That we would consider to be, a piece of technology or data that could enable opportunities around circular economy. It also could include, we found with our closed loop plastics process that we bring back and take back any brand of used electronics, not only Dell branded products, but any brand of electronics through our recycling program. And that certainly introduces a lot of diversity of products and materials that come in. And part of the technology solution was one of our technology providers that helped us develop the process to separate and segregate the different plastics from that recycling stream and be able to recover the exact type of plastic and the purity of the plastic that we would use in a new Dell product. And so that took a lot of technology development to develop that ability and the process to be able to recover and efficiently recycle those materials, and then the materials that don't meet those specifications, working with them to find other recycling opportunities and other types of products and industries to be able to efficiently use those raw materials. So technology, I think, could be used broadly in that sense, and I think for each each organization, there's different ways to think about it. But I think again back to what I said earlier is just I think that getting better information on your product life cycle and the flows and bringing those stakeholders that own those different parts of the life cycle together is one of the best first steps to getting it going.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate that tip there, Scott, and that also leads us really nicely to our last question to all of you panelists today. For our audience members wanting to really grow a circular economy strategy within their business, can you each give me your top 3 tips that you would give to our audience members? Giulio, why don't we start with you? What would be your top 3 tips that you would give to our members today listening in to help grow a circular economy strategy?
Well, this is not an easy question, because maybe because I'm an ingredient producer and not a producer of a final product, but for sure to measure, please measure all what you are doing. This is very important to understand where you are. This is the first point. Second, give your definition of sustainability and of circular economical methodology or model that you think you want or you can apply to your system. Third, please consider that you have to produce a beautiful product, because if it is not nice, nobody is going to buy it.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you for that. Tim, let's try me back in. What would be your top 3 tips you would give to our audience today to help them grow their own circular economy strategy?
I think the 3 that come to mind is first to have a vision, and to create a vision that's challenging but yet realistic. And having that vision, then move to your stakeholders to start to really ferret that out and see what's possible in the short term and get those early victories, like I said, and putting those together to build up to meet the total vision. So vision, stakeholders, and the third thing would be just overall commitment. And as Giulio had said, develop key performance indicators so that you can measure your progress and make those visible so people can see. That's a sign of success in the way you measure your victories. So vision, rely on stakeholders and be comprehensive there, and have a full commitment to the program. Those are my 3 top ones.
Excellent. Thank you. And Scott, over to you for your 3.
It's always hard going last on one of these. So I would say, because Tim and Giulio provided some great examples there, I would say to kind of build on that, the 3 for us would be I think Tim articulated it well of having, you know, a clear definition and a vision of where you want to go. I would only add to that you know, do that with an eye towards what your customers or where your customers are also going, and understanding their expectations and their strategy with respect to circular economy. The second tip there would be, as I talked about earlier, is really getting a life cycle view of your product or your service, and bringing each of the stakeholders that have influence or impact on that life cycle to the table, both from beginning stages of design all the way through the end of life of a product or service. And then the third would be, you know, get started. Once you find an opportunity, you know, start small. It could be something simple and small, or it could be something that could be complex and difficult. But you know, get started and don't give up. These certainly come with you know, trials and errors, so to speak, to develop you know, really scalable solutions. But I think Tim put it best, of commitment, right? There will be some blunders along the way. You are doing something new here, and so, you know, kind of commit to it and stay with it, and you know, see it through. So those would be my three.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Just to summarize those key takeaways for our audience members today, our panelists' top tips in terms of growing a circular economy strategy. Number one, measure what you are doing. Number two, give a clear definition of sustainability and a circular economy model that you can apply. Number three, producing a product that is actually beautiful, in Giulio's words, something that your customers will actually be interested in buying. Number four, really have a vision, think big, be challenging, and also be quite realistic with what you want to achieve. Number five, get those early victories and really rely on your key stakeholders for feedback. 6, be committed. Develop KPIs and make this visible as a program. 6, get a life cycle view of your products. And 7, don't be afraid, don't give up, start small, but at least just get started. So great. Thank you everyone so much, and we really hope that you enjoyed the discussion today. It's been absolutely excellent, and I'm afraid time has now run out. Everyone who signed up to the webinar will receive a recording of today's webinar. And if your questions weren't answered, you can raise this with our speakers today and 200 more that will be joining us at the 5th Responsible Business Summit, New York, taking place on the 27th and the 28th of March next year in New York, and also via our hashtag RBSNY. So please do visit www.ethicalcorp.com/RBS-USA for the full speaker lineup and agenda. Thank you again for today's discussion, and we hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, and we did enjoy it.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Yes, happy holidays. You too.
To everyone as well.
Okay.